Like many other love stories in Pinewood, Andrew and Paula Keene started 15 years ago at the annual Harvest Festival. Back then, as a bashful graduate student, Andrew had offered to oversee the physics demonstration area. Paula, who was spending the weekend at home from college, was enthralled with his fervent physics lecture. During their romance, they had many outdoor experiences and spent cozy evenings talking about their future goals. While Andrew was amazed by Paula's self-assurance and enthusiasm for life, Paula was captivated to Andrew's quiet intensity and sharp mind. 2 years later, in a modest wedding by Pinewood Lake, friends and family clapped as their vows reverberated off the surrounding mountains. The excitement of starting a family together characterized the first few years of their marriage. After purchasing a lovely craftsman-style house on Maple Street, Paula's assortment of planted herbs and Andrew's telescope quickly took over the wraparound porch. They spent their weekends organizing game nights with their expanding group of friends or trekking the local trails. The Keenes seemed from the outside to be the ideal couple, supportive, loving, and incredibly synchronized. But little cracks in their relationship started to show as time went on. Paula's marketing career took off, resulting in long work nights and lots of travel for business. Satisfied with his job as a high school teacher, Andrew found it difficult to relate to his wife's ambition for career advancement. His world started to feel smaller than Paula's, and he started to feel left behind. Their once free-flowing chat started to sound forced and shallow. Paula became irritated with Andrew when he refused to branch out from their routines and try new things. In response, Andrew began to feel more and more unworthy in light of Paula's successful work and active social life. Efforts to revive their relationship frequently failed. Tentative quiet fell between them as they realized how little they had in common now after their romantic holiday to the Oregon coast. Instead of fostering true connection, date nights have become a box-checking exercise. They both started making up reasons to escape the unpleasantness of forced passion, and even their physical intimacy diminished. It was during this precarious moment that Paula Keene met David Reeves for the first time, starting a series of events that would upset the delicate balance of their marriage and result in unanticipated outcomes. At the Pinewood Business Association mixer on a soggy Tuesday afternoon, the seeds of Paula and David's affair were sown. Paula, speaking on behalf of her marketing company, couldn't help but be pulled to the gregarious newcomer, who was so passionate about bringing the town's visual identity back to life. David's excitement was contagious, and before Paula knew it, an hour had flown by in what seemed like minutes. Their work paths continued to intersect during the ensuing weeks. David was employed by Paula's company for a number of projects that required regular communication and teamwork. Their working connection soon turned into a friendship, and they found a shared appreciation of obscure indie films and contemporary art, which led to lunch dates that went far beyond the scheduled hour. Paula felt a spark of excitement that she hadn't felt in years as she began to look forward to their interactions. She had forgotten how David made her feel noticed, how he really cared about her ideas and paid attention to what she was thinking. David, on the other hand, found himself enthralled by Paula's sharp tongue and the enthusiasm with which she discussed her profession. After a particularly effective presentation to a customer one evening, the boundaries between work and personal life were less distinct. Overwhelmed by their success, Paula and David made the decision to toast with beverages at a pub outside of the city. Their chat became more personal as the evening went on, and their inhibitions began to fade. David's hand lingered on Paula's for a minute that was too prolonged to be coincidental. As they stood in the parking lot, Paula took the initiative and leaned in to give David a kiss. Driven by drink and long-suppressed yearning, the kiss intensified rapidly. In the next town over, at a modest bed and breakfast, they had their first covert meeting. All worries about the repercussions vanished as they collapsed into each other's arms. Tangled in wrinkled sheets in the afterglow, Paula and David talked themselves into believing that what they had discovered was too valuable to part with. And so started a deliberate dance of moments taken and talks held in secret, with each meeting adding a new layer to the web of lies that would eventually trap them all. Andrew Keene was blissfully ignorant of his wife's adultery for months. He credited Paula's happier disposition and rekindled vigor to a constructive change in her professional life. But as winter gave way to spring, a few little contradictions started to nag at the corners of his awareness. Little things at first, like Paula's newfound interest in obscure music she'd never mentioned before, quiet phone calls that stopped suddenly when he walked in the room, and her unexplained anxiety if plans altered without warning. At first, Andrew ignored these observations because he didn't want to face the rising discomfort in the pit of his stomach. That calm Sunday afternoon proved to be the turning point. Andrew was reaching past Paula's laptop, which was left open on the kitchen counter, to get a cup when a notice appeared on the screen. An unsaved numbers message preview said, "I'm excited to see you tomorrow. The previous occasion was incredible." Andrew froze his hand in midair. He was aware that he shouldn't peek as it would be against Paula's privacy, but once suspicion was aroused, it didn't take long to grow. His fingers shaking, he clicked on the message thread. His worst fears were realized as he saw vows of passion, barely concealed allusions to secret rendezvous, and months of private conversations scrolling before his eyes. He noticed a picture David had sent, and it was the last piece of the puzzle to fit together. Andrew, trembling and queasy, shut down the laptop and withdrew to the basement, his thoughts racing. That evening, Paula came home to find him sitting in the dark, his eyes distant and red-rimmed. The raw brutality of the encounter that ensued was evident. Taken aback, Paula attempted to deny everything at first, but after seeing the proof Andrew had uncovered, she eventually gave in and admitted to the affair. Andrew listened in hard silence as Paula cried and tried to explain. After she was done, he got up and silently left the room, leaving Paula alone herself with the remains of their marriage all over the place. Following his heartbreaking revelation, Andrew Keene shocked everyone by seeming to accept the situation with a cool demeanor. Andrew urged Paula to stay even after she offered to go out, feeling so guilty. He talked about how he would always love her even after she had sinned, and how they would work through their differences together. Overwhelmed by relief at this unplanned respite, Paula pushed herself into mending their bond. After exchanging sharp phone calls, she blocked David's number and social media accounts. To reignite their relationship, she recommended couples counseling, date evenings, and maybe a second honeymoon. The Keenes put on a united front to their friends and co-workers. They were spotted laughing together at neighborhood gatherings, holding hands at the farmer's market, and Andrew even showed up at Paula's office unannounced with flowers. Many in Pinewood expressed admiration for the couple's ability to withstand such a tempest, saying they appeared stronger than ever. However, behind this well-built facade, a completely different reality was coming to light. Andrew's act of forgiveness was a brilliant performance that belied a betrayed heart and a revenge-driven mind. Every kind remark and affectionate gesture was planned, intended to give Paula a false sense of security as he struggled with his mounting addiction. While Paula slept in the late hours of the night, Andrew would lie awake, reliving in his imagination images of his wife in David's embrace. He started journaling and wrote dark thoughts and complex dreams about confronting his wife's boyfriend on the pages. Writing these ideas down turned into a way for him to let go of them, keeping his composure even as his internal conflict grew more intense. Desperate to see them through to the end, Paula failed to notice the telltale signals of Andrew's inner turmoil. Weeks went months, and Andrew found himself naturally falling into the charade. With terrifying accuracy, he played the role of the forgiving spouse as his bitterness developed and festered. He started to see his act as a cosmic joke and found it sinisterly amusing how readily everyone believed the illusion, including Paula. Autumn approached, and Andrew Keene's meticulously manicured exterior started to show signs of weakness from his mounting addiction. Andrew was having trouble focusing in class because he could not stop thinking about Paula and David together. For small transgressions, he lost his typical tolerance like morning dew and snapped at the students. Observing the shift, co-workers murmured concerns about his unpredictable actions in the teacher's lounge. Andrew became more and more erratic in his actions as his jealousy rose. In order to allay his anxieties, he covertly placed a GPS tracker on Paula's vehicle, rationalizing the infringement of her privacy. He would spend many nights poring over her location data, creating complex narratives to account for any deviations from her regular paths. Andrew's once wide-ranging interests became focused on keeping an eye on Paula, and consequently David. He made up fictitious social media profiles to stalk David on the internet, closely examining each post and conversation for any indication that he and Paula were still in contact. David drove around his office and apartment for hours on end, expecting to see something, anything, to validate his suspicions. One evening in October proved to be pivotal. Andrew followed Paula to a tiny downtown art museum after he told himself she was seeing David after work. He watched from the other side of the street as Paula came out of the gallery, giggling and chatting with several co-workers. David was nowhere to be found. Something inside Andrew broke in that instant. The anger and embarrassment that had been building for months did not go away when he realized his suspicions were baseless. Andrew made up his mind as he sat in his car and watched Paula drive off. He would push reality to fit his suspicions if it didn't already. He would set things up so that they bring his vengeful fantasies to reality at all costs. Once his strategy was in motion, Andrew Keene acted with a malicious precision, his every move well thought out to achieve his goal. Under the pretense of asking Peter, Paula's boss, for career guidance, he started by renewing their acquaintance. In their talks, Andrew gently suggested that Paula's effectiveness at work might be impacted by personal problems, casting doubt on her dedication to the company. Additionally, he started going to the neighborhood pub where David frequently went for after-work drinks. By getting to know the regulars, he was able to gradually turn them against David by spreading well-crafted tales about his immoral business methods. Andrew's scheme resulted in a well-planned altercation, accusing David of embezzlement and giving enough falsified proof to start an internal inquiry. He sent an anonymous tip to David's largest client. Simultaneously, he placed an unidentified message on Paula's vehicle, implying that David had intentions of disclosing private information about her business to an adversary. As a result of the ensuing turmoil, David and Paula's company lost its contract, which caused David to become professionally isolated. Andrew suggested that Paula take a weekend vacation to a secluded cabin in the middle of all of this chaos as a chance to unwind and get away from the stress of their regular lives. Paula enthusiastically agreed, needing to trust in their rekindled relationship. The first night at the cabin was uncannily quiet, full of forced giggles and wistful memories. But as the night went on, Andrew's mask started to come off. With each accusation, he raised his voice and said that Paula was still in love with David. Taken aback by the abrupt change, Paula fiercely denied having any affections for David, claiming she had severed all connections months prior. Andrew's fury flared as Paula attempted to flee. With his bruising grip, he took hold of her arm and made her confess to her continuous betrayal. Terrified, Paula broke free and staggered through the pitch-black woodland as she ran into the night. Andrew followed her, his wild eyes belying the deranged ideas that had been eating away at him for months. Paula struck her head on a rock after tripping over a fallen branch amid the confusion. Andrew was furious, but as she lay unconscious, a detached clarity took her place. He came to the realization that he had crossed the line irrevocably between retaliation and insanity. As he carried Paula back to the cabin, theories about what might have happened began to swirl in his head. Andrew was waiting for Paula the following morning, making up a tale about how she had collapsed while taking a passionate midnight stroll. Paula, her recollections fragmented and fuzzy, agreed with his version of events. However, she couldn't get rid of the feeling that something was seriously wrong as the days went by, and the bruises on her arm grew darker. The rumors about the Keenes were more prevalent back in Pinewood. Paula's acquaintances noted the haunted expression in her eyes, while Andrew's co-workers recognized his rising instability. The details of what had happened that evening in the cabin remained a dark secret between them, and their once perfect marriage now served as a thin shell that only partially covered up the broken reality underneath. In the end, Andrew's downfall was caused by his own paranoia and remorse. He couldn't handle the fallout from his deeds, so in a drunken tantrum at a holiday party, he told Peter everything. Pinewood was stunned by the revelation, which immediately traveled around the town. Now that she was finally free of Andrew's machinations, Paula filed for divorce and went to counseling to get over her ordeal. Despite being cleared of all accusations, David made the decision to leave Pinewood and make a fresh start somewhere else. The Keens narrative became a cautionary tale, a warning of how quickly love can become obsession and how, when trust is broken, the darkest aspects of human nature can come to light. The memory of Andrew and Paula's marriage persisted as Pinewood developed, demonstrating the brittleness of even the most solid partnerships.